Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you one of our favorite series, if we're being honest. This time, of course, it is WrestleMania edition, being WrestleMania week, WrestleMania 42, just 4 days away. We are going to do a two-parter here. This will be the first part of two, and of course, we are going to do one for each night of WrestleMania. This one's going to be WrestleMania Saturday. The logic for this video is quite simple. I'm going to hit KP with a match. Obviously, we're going to go through each match, and KP, you're going to hit me with one of the three following options on how you feel the build has been for each one, either good, bad, or horrendous. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready to go. Let's get started.
All right, let's do it. WrestleMania Saturday, 7 matches in total. The kickoff match, which was announced last night on Raw, will be Logan Paul, Austin Theory, and I Show Speed going up against the Usos and LA Knight. What are we thinking?
I'd be inclined to go on the side of good for this build, purely for the fact that we've actually got a few layers here. We obviously have the tag team championships being involved here with the Usos. They've seemingly been passed over to the Visions, Austin Theory, and Logan Paul, thanks courtesy to I Show Speed being cursed by Danhausen. So there's a lot of different layers in this one. I Show Speed not really wanting to be involved and sort of like having that devil on his shoulder in the way of the Vision with Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And yeah, just seemingly just accidentally getting involved in bits here and there. It sort of is adding to the sort of like intensity and the heat of the rivalry between the two teams, I suppose you could say. What I will say is a little bit of a downside was last night's episode of Raw, where we did have just seemingly an MFT just insertion for whatever random reason. I guess maybe to elevate their story and to keep that moving along with them with what they've got going on at the moment. Obviously, we've got that family reference with the bloodline and the Usos and Sokoa. So I guess it does have some a little bit of sense in there. But yeah, I think for the most part though, I'm kind of looking forward to this matchup just purely for the fact that it could be quite chaotic. I'm interested to see how Speed does. There's obviously that sort of layer in there. We talk about celebrity involvement, that'll be a big thing across the course of these two videos. This is one that I actually don't really mind looking into because Speed does seem like he brings a different element to it. So yeah, I'm gonna say this one has a good build so far. I don't want to be too critical on all of them, but I think this one is good. What about you, Nick? Where are your thoughts on this one? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, definitely one of the better ones. And I've mentioned on the weekly recaps, I think I Show Speed has a ton of charisma, and I think he's super entertaining. Obviously, he is a social media rock star for a reason. Putting him in there with Logan Paul was, probably intentional. Like you said, you have several layers here that I think could work out for the better. Um, yeah, I think it's just been decent. Obviously this wasn't the initial plan, but all things considered, I think this could be a lot of fun. And I think just kind of what they've done here with iShow being the primary focus, and then LA Knight just kind of wanting to finally rid of the Vision problem. Yeah, I think it's been pretty good. All things considered, I think WWE has done a good job with this one. The next one has Jacob Fatu going up against Drew McIntyre in an unsanctioned match. What do you think on this one?
Well, where do you start with this one? This goes back, depending on how far you want to look at it. You obviously got Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre for that championship. You've got either the first or the second match. You've got maybe even the attack, supposedly, from Drew on Jacob Fatu knocking his teeth down his throat. I think you've got to say this one's a good build because they have been absolutely hellacious towards each other, no matter how far we do go back in this sort of story. Obviously, with the WWE title being passed on from McIntyre to back to Cody Rhodes, with the hellacious sort of beating that these two have sort of inflicted upon each other in McIntyre and Fatu, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Like just seeing sort of like how everything's escalated. Obviously, we've got the sort of like past sort of prison references from McIntyre towards Fatu. You're either going to like that or you're maybe going to sort of, I don't know, maybe a bit uncomfortable about it. I've not minded it too much. I don't mind it because it sort of brings out another sort of feeling for Jacob Fatu here. I feel like it is extremely personal. And if there's something that you get from Drew McIntyre, you get these sort of like blood feuds. And he's had that across the last like few years now. We look the past like CM Punk, Damian Priest, now
Yeah.
Jacob Fatu. So like I think no matter who he's sort of in this big feud with, he sort of brings like a really good side out of his opponent. So yeah, I'm sure their unsanctioned match at WrestleMania is going to be great. Based on what we've seen so far, they're going to absolutely go crazy. It's a lot to live up to. I guess you could say that because they've literally
Absolutely.
been on scaffolding and whatever, and just all just crazy situations before and after that. So yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be great. But I'd say the build's been really good so far. Well, probably one of the better builds, absolutely. What about you, Nick? Are you on the same side as me? And how much you sort of looking forward to this one playing out?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely one of the best builds. I think, as you kind of alluded to there, I think one of the only issues is maybe the match doesn't live up to the hype because this one does have a very long feud leading up to it. And I think you kind of mentioned the attack. Still don't really know who did that, but you had your theories, but they kind of hit on that recently to remind us that they hadn't forgot about it. But yeah, definitely, as you alluded to as well, Drew McIntyre, everything he does turns to gold. This is no exception. Jacob Fatu, he's pretty all right as well. But yeah, this has been super personal and definitely one of the best, probably one of the few builds that I would consider doing a great instead of a good. But yeah, this one definitely a good category for me. Looking forward to this one. The next match is to no fault of WWE, but this is the result of entries, as you alluded to there in the bottom left hand corner with your slide. Seth Rollins versus Gunther. What are you thinking on this one?
It's difficult to say this on this one because it's been so quick since everything's come out. And like you said, you've already alluded to it. There's no real fault on anybody's. There's been so many things that have sort of made this come to this position. Apparently, plans originally were meant to be Gunter and Rey Mysterio. Whether you believe that or not, that apparently is a rumor. Obviously, Seth Rollins may be looking to go after either one of, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, depending on who was fit and healthy at the time. That's obviously been changing, just going forward here and there. Um, I mean, I guess technically, I guess you have to say the build for this one is kind of bad, but I feel like that's really harsh because they haven't had a lot of time to do anything with it. It's only been a couple of weeks, so I guess in the minimal time they've done a decent job. I thought Gunter's sort of reasoning last night on Raw was great. Just sort of like criticizing Rollins for what he did with the World Championship. Obviously, you have two former World Champions, and they sort of went different ways with their reigns. Um, so I liked that side of things, but yeah, it's hard. Can you say it's good if it's just a couple of weeks in and what you've had in those couple of weeks has been pretty good? But I don't know if maybe you can or can't. It's a very tough decision to be in, but I guess I have to say it's a bad booking. But that's no fault of anybody's. It's just unfortunate things have happened, and you just got to do what you got to do. They've obviously altered, they've pivoted, and they've made this match, which should be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Gunter and Seth sounds fantastic. So yeah, I'm excited for it. It's just an unfortunate, but it's just unlucky. It's really, really unlucky. That's all you can really say about it, I suppose. What about you though? Like, can you sort of separate the good from the bad here? The unluckiness from the sort of like having no options situation here. Where's your head at?
Yeah, I think bad is probably the right call. Like you said, like we both kind of mentioned, it's no fault of WWE. WWE Universe is quick to criticize WWE on this one alone. No, they're doing the best with what they have, and honestly, if this is what happens, results in from that kind of thing, sign me up because this is one of the matches I'm most looking forward to. The build for it obviously isn't great, and of course I had to throw Paul Heyman in there because he's not doing quite enough stuff. I could have done without that. I would have preferred them not to do that. Kind of little egg there, but yeah, the masked guy. Feels like they kind of dropped that. Maybe they haven't, but we haven't seen that. I think in a couple weeks, so make of that what you will. Yeah, I don't think this one needs a big build, and obviously they haven't had time to do that because if they had, we would be eating good with this one. But yeah, all things considered, it's bad, but it could have been worse, and we have other ones on this list that have been. So yeah, not too bad. Next match, Nia Jackson, Lash Legend defending their women's tag team championships in a fatal four-way tag match against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, Bailey and Lyra Valkyria, and possibly the Bella Twins. What do you got in this one?
Yeah, this one's a tough one because this one basically just sort of merges around with each other for like the whole build. And I don't really want to sound disrespectful towards anybody that's involved here, but like it's been quite difficult because of a few reasons. So first and foremost, obviously we got new tag team champions, Lasha and Nia, which has been great for them. They've asserted a new dominancy over the rest of the division. And then you've got the three other teams here. So two of which, Charlotte and Alexa as well as Bailey and Lyra. They've been doing the heavy lifting here, and they've sort of trying to been feuding between each other. We've seen sort of attacks from Lash and Nia here and there to sort of like try and keep things a little bit fresh, I suppose. Get the champion sort of like continue to be assertive amongst the situation. But obviously we got the other team as well here, being Nikki and Brie, and Nikki got injured a few weeks ago, so they've been sort of like trying to make sure that Nikki's going to be back in and fit for the matchup.
Yeah.
Obviously, with that being the case, there's obviously a lot of pressure on those two, and more so Nikki. Obviously, Bree's fine, but yeah, to actually be ready for the matchup. So, apparently they do have contingency plans depending on who you believe in this one. There's a team ready to replace the Bellas if Nikki's not available, but it does seem like they're holding out for Nikki and Bree to be ready. So, yeah, it does just mean that the other two teams, Bailey, Lyra, Charlotte and Alexa. They've had a couple of matches between the two of them. Well, between the two teams, singles matches. Alexa beating Bailey, Lyra beating Charlotte last night on Raw. So it's sort of like even between those two. They're trying to carry the feud, but it's kind of difficult because obviously you got one of the teams that aren't really in contention at the moment because of the injury. It's unfortunate. Again, very much like the previous one with Seth and Gunther. It's you got to do you got to go what you can, and they're trying their best. It's quite difficult. I'd probably say the build has been bad for this one, personally speaking. And again, it's kind of unfortunate because of the injury, but yeah, it's all too meshy for me. It all just blends in together too much, and there's no real standout situations here, except for maybe Lara beating Charlotte. That's huge, but besides that, yeah, nothing too great. What about you, Nick? Do you sort of agree with me here?
Yeah, I think this one is a bit more complicated for me because we knew or we had a good feeling this is the direction they were going 6 months ago because the women's tag division was the best division in WWE, at least in my opinion. And we assumed this was coming. The problem is the Bella's injury is now kind of just turned this into like, oh, we'll rotate these teams and you guys can battle each other out. There's really no other issue. Like they've hit on the Bailey and Charlotte, for horsewomen history, but honestly, they haven't really hit on a ton of other things. Lash and Nia have kind of taken the back seat to the other teams over the last few weeks, and because of the Bella Twins, I'm assuming that's the reason why. Because they've been kind of taken out. I would have preferred they just would have, because it seems like that's what they're doing anyways. Just sort of replace them with the Kabuki Warriors, and they would have had 4 teams. If the Bella Twins were then healthy, they could have been, interjected back in there. But I think probably the 3 teams probably wouldn't have worked because they were just getting up on the champions probably. But yeah, this one has felt pretty lazy, honestly, because especially comparatively speaking to what at one point this division was. Yeah, this one's not great. It feels like a lot of 50-50 booking, and I I this was a match I was really looking forward to, and now I'm just kind of, it'll be good, I'm sure, but I think just too many unknowns, and definitely has taking a hit on the build side of it. So yeah, bad for me as well. The next match has AJ Lee defending her women's Intercontinental Championship against the man Becky Lynch.
Uh, well, what do you really say about this one? This is a tough one. There isn't really much to go by here. It's been, you know, obviously there's been a large build between these two ladies. That is absolutely 100%. But it's sort of ever since AJ Lee won the championship at Elimination Chamber, this one has just sort of completely fizzled out. And we've seen a little bit since then. Obviously, we had Becky Lynch attacking AJ Lee on a Raw. We had a sort of like conversation between the two ladies, which was actually relatively civil, despite the harsh words said towards each other. No fists were thrown. Um, yeah, there just hasn't been much to go by here, and maybe that's because of AJ Lee's schedule. I don't know if she's busy doing her book signing stuff still. She's been very busy with that, obviously, the last like year or so. But when it comes to selling a match for WrestleMania, I think realistically you got to have you know both superstars involved regularly on the weekly shows, and they haven't really been doing that. So yeah, I would say the build for this one's been horrendous, and I feel like that's harsh to say, but I don't overly care about this match because they've just lost my interest. I cared about it back when they did it over to Elimination Chamber and that sort of thing, stemming from the previous months before that into War Games or whatever. But yeah, now I honestly can't wait for this to end and just to have something better happening. And whether that's because of AJ Lee's part time stuff, I don't know. But I just want to see the title more often. We don't see it enough, so yeah, it's just losing interest for me, and that's a shame. So yeah, horrendous for me personally. What about you, Nick? This is a tough one to sort of like get a lot from, but it doesn't help when they're not here and active a lot. That's the problem.
100% horrendous on this one, and AJ Lee is absolutely to blame. They brought her back. She can't be here. hard to build a feud off that, and this match has been in the works for a long, long time, and it seemingly got put on pause for a long time as well. Considering the talent here, how big each star is and or was, there's no reason why this shouldn't be a better build. But because AJ Lee is not here, this is what we get. And similar to you, in terms of a build, I don't think they could have done a worse job just because there's really no story there. They were each, highlighted as the best of their generation, or at least that's their point going into here, and that's kind of where it ends. Not the worst by far, but definitely not the best. The next match has Liv Morgan going up against Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. What do you think about this one, KP?
Well, if I can add a different title to this one, I'd say it's a great build. Obviously, it's been good. Yeah, it's obviously stemming back to the Royal Rumble win for Liv Morgan, choosing Stephanie Vaquer. And then it's been a pretty bloody feud between the two ladies ever since then. It's been quite savage. But yeah, I've enjoyed watching this one sort of like play out in advance, sort of like from week to week, because it sort of started off a little bit sort of, I don't know, on the calmer side of things, and then they sort of like built it up nice and steadily. And I feel like this one is just a classic WrestleMania build because it's like I said, it started off kind of calm, and every single week the intensity, the heat has rose, and it's got a little bit more intense each week, a little bit more vile, a little more brutal, and they're sort of like really just sort of like getting to that boiling point right at the right time going into WrestleMania where the heat is literally the highest and the interest is the best as well. So yeah, I think they've done a great job at building this matchup between both ladies. Was I overly interested at first? A little bit, but now I'm heavily involved, and I can't wait to see how this one plays out at WrestleMania. In terms of just what we've been through, obviously last week's attack from Stephanie Vaquer, smashing Liv Morgan, onto Roxy to begin with, and then obviously into the TV. The fact that they had to go through concussion protocols for that one is nuts. To be fair, maybe a little bit too intense from Vaquer. And then last night as well, we saw Kathy Kelly getting sort of caught up in the brawl between Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer. And look at that face from Morgan. I mean, that is nuts, to be fair. That is somebody who is literally ready to tear her opponent to shreds. I just am a little bit worried because this is a one-on-one matchup. It's a regular rules match. I mean, this could do with like an ODQ or something just because of how intense it's gotten. But hopefully, the matchup is going to be great, regardless of just being a simple one-on-one contest. I'm excited for it nonetheless. So yeah, great stuff from WWE with this one. What about you, Nick? How much have you enjoyed this one?
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun, although I would argue they could have used and or they did deserve more time. They, seemingly get like a minute or two a week, and I would argue they should be getting a lot more than that. Obviously, we've seen a lot more on the other women's main title scene. So, yeah, would have preferred a bit more time here, but both women absolutely taking advantage of every single second they get. And I would put this one as good and definitely one of the better ones of WrestleMania weekend. The main event, WrestleMania Saturday. Obviously, this will probably be a pretty heavy talking point, and I know your build for this one, but for the listeners, KP, what do you got for this one?
I haven't really had a chance to say anything yet, have I? This is a first time situation for me. Yeah, it's probably no surprise. I feel like this build has been absolutely horrendous. It started off kind of good. We had Randy Orton turning heel on Cody, which was absolutely needed at the time. And then we have Pat McAfee being brought into the situation after a series of phone calls and whatnot. And, everyone was sort of thinking, oh, who's it going to be? We should know by now. If WWE has a surprise coming up, it's probably going to be disappointing. Near enough, 9 times out of 10, that's the case. With this particular insertion of Pat McAfee, it was so unnecessary. And apparently he was the number one choice for this. Like, I can't understand that. And then obviously, what he's been saying or what he's been doing, what he's been acting like, just the there are a number of things that really get my sort of gripes with this, but the biggest thing for me is that he literally buried the entirety of Night Two's cast and superstars, basically saying how that show isn't worth watching at all. Don't buy tickets for it. Buy tickets for night one instead. Here's 25% off. Crack on and come and see Randy Orton. Like, for me personally, that's so disrespectful. And I get, like, obviously with a situation like this, it's hard to sort of like really know what to sort of believe and who to really, listen to here. And it's all, is it kayfabe, is it not, blah, blah, is it a shoot, all this kind of stuff. It's so awkward as fans because most of the time we double think everything, we question everything. And this is just one of those weird situations. Like, why have so many of these things happening? Jelly Roll being involved, celebrity insertions at WrestleMania. We don't need any of that. Cody and Randy sells by itself, but apparently, Pat's here to save WWE. He's such a great guy. He's loved WWE for his entire life, but apparently now he's, just absolutely just shit on everyone. So it doesn't make any sense. It's been a horrendous build, absolutely horrendous. They were doing okay until this, and they've absolutely bollocked it. So yeah, not a fan of this one, and that's just sort of like the cliff notes there. But Nick, obviously you're going to say horrendous, but how horrendous?
Yeah, I think I'm impressed at your ability to keep that to a minimum. I expected a little longer, but yeah, it's obviously we're both wrestling purists. We don't want the celebrity involvement at any time, but especially during WrestleMania season, it just kind of makes it that much more. Yeah, we don't really want that. Pat McAfee, as you've hit on, goes against everything. As alluded to last night, Pat was the one eating harder than anyone in the audience, not that long ago, and so for him to kind of feels like it's kind of doesn't make a ton of sense when you look into it. And you could say that about a lot of the heel turns in the past. Like obviously, you have to just do it sometimes, and it has to go against some logic. But Pat seems to go against every single piece of logic. The other side of that, Jelly Roll obviously has been pretty heavily involved long before McAfee. But you know, just the good slice here. I think Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll both have potential, especially on the mic. In ring, yeah, maybe not so much, but on the mic, I think they both could do wonders. But as you've already hit on as well, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, that story sells itself. You could have had just an absolute back and forth, like we kicked off. Like look at that image in the upper right hand corner. That is, that tells you the story right there. You don't need any more of that. You have the history between both of them within the company. That's all they needed to do. It feels like because of the ticket sales, they really just tried grasping at straws with a lot of these feuds, and this is obviously one of the biggest offenders of the weekend. Absolutely, this one deserves to be horrendous. I think the match will be good if they can keep the celebrity involvement away, which I really worry they won't. On paper, this was one of the matches I was looking forward to most, but assuming Jelly Roll will be on Cody's side as Pat is on Randy's, I assume they could make this one an overbooked mess. Hopefully not, but hopefully this one can't be worse than the build. So horrendous build for me, absolutely. Yeah, this this one has been a real head scratcher. But with that WrestleMania Saturday, the builds for each one, let us know if you agree with them or if we've gotten some wrong here. According to this list, we've gotten one, two, only three good builds out of seven. So make of that what you will. Yeah, it is fair to say I think it's been very topical, hence why we want to do these videos. It hasn't been the best build for WrestleMania, but hopefully on paper this one looks good. I think will probably be better than the builds. I think that's fair to say, but yeah, would love to hear from you all in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. This has been the latest episode of If We're Being Honest. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.